Boom. Looks like we're live. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the 21 Gun Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Sullivan. Over here, of course, is the lovely Franklin. I almost said Roosevelt. Easterling. it's like, you know, you say
it kind of rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. If you guys were a fly in the wall, you would have just heard our conversation about mustaches. I used to believe that there was no way they could come back because, like, they just, I don't know, if they fall out of style, they fall out of style. Like just, you see the people wearing them and you're like, dude, 1987 called with its IROC Z and its mullet. And then for some reason, enough people are daring enough to wear them that people start going, hey, you know what? I kind of like the mustache, because throughout history, the mustache has come and gone. So people do like them at some points.
True.
Well, you had a mustache, right?
I did. I did in the military because I wasn't allowed a beard,
right?
Which is hypocritical of me because I wanted facial hair so bad in the military.
Yeah.
So I had my little Hitler stash because it had to be within regs.
And back in those days,
and everyone was like just railed like, you better be within regs. And now, I refused to cut my beard because for 17 and a half years I couldn't have facial hair.
Yeah,
like how I wanted.
Plus, you get used to it. I don't like not having a beard now. I've had one for 10 years. I can't.
But now I look at every way you look in the military, everyone's got a beard.
Yeah, they all get
it annoys me.
The waivers.
It annoys the mess out of me.
It's pretty rough. Yeah, there's a lot of waivers. It was, and I assume for other groups, but in my squadron, you had to grow a mustache on your first deployment. It was the deployment stash.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it was very. You could like, oh, I'm gonna be a rebel, cheat the system and bring it out a little bit. Maybe, that all started with Robin Olds, one of the premier fighter. I would call him the quintessential fighter pilot. Like when you think of a fighter pilot, it's Robin Olds, and we will have a conversation about him on another day because that'll take a while. But that was his thing. He had the curly Q mustache and his whole squadron, because and we're actually going to talk a little bit about that tonight. They were getting shot down. They were getting chewed up over Vietnam. Their morale was like just in the dirt. And so they all started growing mustaches. And it was just one way to honor Robin Olds, their commander, but another way to increase their morale. But if you have been watching the show at any length, so this Memorial Day, I think this show will be 7 years old.
Really?
It was either 2018 or it was 2018. This show will be 7 years old.
Nice.
3 with IW, 2.5 with that doesn't, because we had some time in between there. So 3, 6, and then almost a year. Actually, a year going on our own. That's crazy. That's unbelievable, because my other show I thought I did forever, and it was only 3 years. So I've been doing this for like 11 years now. I'm a pro. Sit back. Wait till I read my stuff. You'll see how good I am at broadcasting. I'm better at talking. The problem is the new format. We got a lot of data to mention.
Go
right?
Through,
yeah. So I have to read it. Getting better, but what are you going to do? Anyways, what are we here for? Tonight, we're diving into the extraordinary career of Captain Lance P. Sijan. If you haven't heard of Lance Sijan in the world of the Air Force Academy, Air Force flyers, and really Air Force in general, he's like your John Basilone. He's like everyone who's been in the Air Force knows of Captain Sijan.
Okay.
Kind of a legendary individual. If you're ever bored at night, and here's the other thing too, like coming up with people for this show is the easiest thing in the world. Like there are so many extraordinary dudes out there that there's no short list of these people. If you're ever bored at night, and just go to there's Medal of Honor databases, just pull them up, and there's like 3,600. Back in the Civil War, they were given out a little more loosely. They were still crazy stories, but they were given out a little bit more loosely. And it wasn't until World War I, World War II, where they were like, no, we got to save these for the absolute cream of the crop. But the idea of having this list of people, I started thinking, is uncommon valor as uncommon as we think it is? So here's my thought, right? Let's say, and I guess, all right, there's 2 points to this. Number one is, if you're not put in the position where you have to show uncommon valor, right? A clerk, motor pool, whatever your job is, you could have the gene to be uncommon, right? To be a Medal of Honor recipient. You just don't know. And we've talked about in the show, right? People don't know, or we think they don't know they have what it takes. Maybe there's some dudes that are like, oh, I'm going to win a Medal of Honor. I doubt it, because they'd probably be killed if that's your goal. Anyone joining the military, that should not be your goal. No. You don't want to earn a Medal of Honor, a Purple Heart, a Silver Star. If it happens, good on you, but don't aim for that, because you're going to get one posthumously, 100%. But let's say it's 1%, right? Which is a tiny minority. 1% of the military, or the individual who will actually step up. So it could be fire, police, pilots, things like that. 1% have the gene to have uncommon valor. And if you think about that, so units vary in size, but let's say your unit's 500 people. That's 5 dudes, or women in your squadron, or whatever you have, that if it really hits the fan, they may be the ones to step up. And so since you have them every year, every OCS class, every infantry class, every boot camp class, you have those 5 or 6 people sprinkled about over the course of decades, over the course of lots of people, then you're going to have these stories come out. Am I thinking too deep into it? Or I'm just trying to figure out, because when you read these stories, you think to yourself, would I do that? And you would like to think you would, but you never know until you're in a situation like Lance Sijan. And let me add one more thing. Sorry. Maybe it's there for a reason, for maybe evolutionarily speaking, it's a gene that when the going gets tough, that 1% step up and they inspire the others to step up. And then, look at generation. This incident happened 60 years ago, and we're still talking about it today. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, the thing is, you can't train valor. You can't train courage and confidence. You can instill an instinct to try to get someone to not freeze in situations. So you can kind of
desensitize them to stress.
But you can't train near death or almost death or situations. You can have a soundtrack of live rounds while you train.
Because there's no consequence, really.
Right. So because you're in training. I know I'm training. I know that situation isn't upon me. I give you a case in point. I'm not going to say any names, but we had a gentleman in my unit who wanted to go SF, wanted to be that guy.
Right.
He wanted to be Tim Kennedy. That was him. This was this guy. I got to slip his name in as much as I can.
Every episode.
I got to slip it in there. He wanted to be this dude. He was training, real fitness nut, and always talked about, standards and this, that, and the third, whatever. So when we got to our unit, or when we got overseas, we got to Afghanistan, they threw him in with the SF and as part of the teams, because we were supporting them.
Okay.
So
he was EOD. Okay.
We had 2 guys. So we sent 2 guys per team. So we sent a team leader and a team leader and a team member with an SF group.
Okay.
With the team. So you had a team here. You got 2 EOD guys per, a staff sergeant and preferably a sergeant or a corporal as the team member.
Okay.
Well, the one dude over here was good. And then you had this guy over here who was Mr. SF, wanted to be this. And so we're like, okay, well, you're getting what you want.
Yeah.
He got fired at one time. Literally one time, they got into a conflict, and he curled up, and did not want to move, and was on the radio begging to get pulled out of the situation as quick as possible.
That's funny.
His team member, who at the time was an E4, was a corporal, because they had to give him corporal because he was a special at the time, stepped up and did what he had to do, while this dude was literally just frozen and didn't move.
What do they do with someone like that? Do you just end up manning a gate and using the mirror to look for bombs?
They sent him back to the fob, and he sat there for a while when they tried to figure out what to do with him. And I think they stuck him on a fob and had him just go through routes. Because you know,
you get it.
While his team member carried on with the mission. So this, and again, you're talking about somebody who was an E6 and an E4, and the E6 froze.
Yeah, that's not good.
Like literally froze and was like, nope, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, so he wasn't that 1% for sure.
Definitely not.
I think in the aviation world, life or death comes very quickly. Like you can't fake landing. You can't fake low levels. You can't fake flying in the weather. So you get that stress. Like I would say flying stateside, doing like military type ops, not just flying from airport to airport, but like doing formation flying low, dropping Humvees out the back of our plane. It was just as stressful at times as flying overseas. Overseas was a little more just because the ops tempo was so crazy in the airfields and no air traffic control sucked. But yeah, for the most part, you just made me think of that. Like even your greenest person eventually has to get in the cockpit.
Yeah.
And you can wind up a smoking hole if you don't do something right. Yeah, it's interesting. But anyways, so this guy here, Landside John, he obviously faced tremendous courage in the face of overwhelming adversity. He was the first U.S. Air Force Academy graduate to receive the Medal of Honor, which sounds crazy, but at the time he went in the 1960s, the Air Force Academy had only been open for like 3 or 4 years when he came in.
Okay.
Yeah. But I guess the crazy point about that, though, is no Air Force Academy graduate has earned one since. From the skies over the Vietnam to the brutal confines of North Vietnamese prison, Sijan's journey is a testament to the human will to survive and resist. Buckle up, gents. Now, Jeremy, hold on, right before I say my, we're going to open up the fourth wall for everybody out there. Jeremy and I, we brief a word that I'm going to say where he goes into the intro song. Have we been going too long to play the intro song? I feel like we've been talking for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It kind of sets the tone, though. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, ready? This is a story of valor that will leave you in awe. Still worked. Sometimes I watch shows and you feel like actually you watch a movie, you're in the movie, and then suddenly like 15 minutes in,
there's credits.
You're like, really? You're going to throw that at me right now?
So funny enough, you were talking about that. Like, Jeremy, we can kind of do this thing. And I had my finger on the button. I'm like, I'm going to do it right now. But just in the moment you were talking about it, that would have been funny. But
yeah, that would have been good. Have you guys seen Warfare? Have you seen Warfare yet?
Is that the latest one?
Yeah.
I just bought it.
You just saw it?
I just saw it. I bought it on Vudu on Fandango. Man, that was accurate. It took me a second to watch it, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm still debating whether I'm there enough to watch it. Because just like the clips I saw. Mm-hmm. Because my wife actually was like, hey, you got to see this preview. And she like found it. And she showed me the preview. And I was like, I don't know if I can watch that one just yet.
If you're worried
it looked a little too, on the nose.
If you're worried about watching it based off of that, be glad that I'm telling you right now, what's in the movie, had they put any of that as a trailer, you'd definitely be quiet. Dude, it is accurate. It is grotesque. It is violent, but it is accurate. It's really good. It's a really good movie.
The amazing thing about the movie is it's two parts, right? And the first part is the boredom. Mm-hmm. And they don't pull back on that. I think that was the point of him making the movie, is like they're doing some sort of operation. They're a SEAL unit, and they're working with Marines, and they take this house, and this is their OP, right? Their observation post.
Right.
And it goes through kind of the tedious, the sniper's up there and he's just looking in and, taking notes, and, there's a naval, I don't know what he is. I don't think he's a JTAC, some sort of commo, maybe some sort of comms officer that's out there. Maybe he was a SEAL. I don't know. You couldn't really tell in the movie, but he's doing his computer stuff, and the guys on the radios, and it just keeps going on like that for like the longest time, and then someone tosses a grenade through the hole they made for their rifle, and then all hell breaks loose. But the movie isn't like, don't expect I'm trying to think, like Black Hawk Down, where that movie just gets you from the beginning to the end, and it's just all action. There's a few moments of warfare, and I think that's the point of the movie, is to show you that warfare is these moments of gunfire and chaos, and then collecting yourself and taking control of the situation.
Okay.
And so a couple guys get pretty badly injured. They survive though, which is, I just spoiled it. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah. It's gonna take me, and this I deal with this with military movies all the time, especially the ones that hit kind of close to home.
Mm-hmm.
Especially you talked about, like, okay, it deals with the boredom and all that stuff.
Well, there's an IED in this one, which is like, one of the
so
main...
it's gonna take me. I'm gonna have to take a day, like a whole day, and just kind of like get myself ready.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to watch it in the daytime. I can't watch it at night.
Yeah.
Because it's like it'll trigger. So I have to be like really careful.
Well, even like me being a flyer, having flown Casevacs, having flown injured, having flown coffins, it was something that my family wasn't home, and I was like, I'm just going to go upstairs and watch it. And it was intense, especially that's all I'll say. It's just an intense movie. Okay. I don't think anyone's being too critical of it. I think maybe if you're going to be
seen anything about it, so
if you're going to be critical, I guess they want to go see a war movie, and instead they're seeing a traumatic war movie. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know. I think it was a good one. Oh, the point I brought up with that is it's a SEAL team, and it's based on a true story. And these so you always think SEALs, right? They're gunfire erupts. They're just Supermen running down. No, a couple of them were just like, I don't want any part of this. I don't like where I am right now, and I don't want it. Do you remember that, Jeremy? There was a couple dudes that were just like kind of in the background, and they're like, like you're going to be on point leaving this building, and they're like, no thanks.
Yeah, they literally they play into the fear of it, the psychological side of it, the anticipation. They go into the new guy type of like gung-ho-ness about it. Like they really dive into it, and it's literally from the vision and eyes of the guys who literally went through that exact thing.
And the TBI, which they made very clear, right? All these guys, a lot of them survived uninjured, like well, I don't even want to say that, but they didn't have they weren't bleeding or anything.
Right.
But they made a point that the team leader and a couple other dudes were they weren't there. Like after the ID went off, they had points where like the movie would kind of pan to one guy, and then the sound would drop out, and you could tell he was just out of it. And then someone would talk to him as he was like rendering aid, and then he would come back out and he'd be like, what, where are we? And so I thought that was it, because TBI, I think, is the premier. It's the classic wound of Iraq.
It's the most unseen thing. And I can speak to that personally, because after I got bit by the IED that got me, I remember getting hit. I remember keying in the radio. I remember no one really caring that I had gotten hit. And I remember saying, well, you know what? Hey, F it, the truck's fine. Let's just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And they took me out of that truck. I remember getting out of the truck. Well, I remember telling the bird over on top of us to light the field up, because we had the guy that triggered it was in the field, and he lit the field up to my right with 6-inch rocket, just destroyed the field and got the guy. I remember them taking me out of that truck, putting me in the RG-31 behind us, or 2 trucks back. And then the next thing I remember, I was in the hospital, and the doctor was talking to me, asking me what time it was. So there's a whole about 20, 30 clicks that I don't remember from where I was to the hospital, and the doctor's asking me the time, and I just went 02, because the clock was behind his head.
Yeah.
And then from there, he's asked me the whole tape test, the Apple saddle bubble thing, whatever test, to make sure your head's not screwy. I went from that to there being a blank of now I'm in my chew. And I remember my roommate waking me up, because he didn't know that I had gotten hit. So we had a mission the next day, and he's trying to wake me up to go on mission again. So me on autopilot, I get all my stuff again, and I'm getting ready to go. And then my guy was like, "What are you doing? Go back to bed. You're off for a while." Okay. So then I remember from that conversation with Red, I go back to my chew, and then it's 2 days later.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything. So for 2 days are gone. And it took a while for my whole like memory system to kind of like reboot and reset. And then like about a week later, I was back on mission.
That's it. And yeah, and they downplayed it, right?
Oh yeah.
To show you the difference, the Air Force, when I got hurt, within like 2 days, I don't even know. I was in Kuwait in a hospital, MRI, right, checking everything.
Nope.
Yeah. But
I didn't have any of that. It felt like somebody had punched the entire right side of my body. And it's like my eye was throbbing, my nose was just stuffy. I couldn't hear properly for weeks.
Yeah, the shockwave.
And then like my whole right side was sore.
Yeah.
Whole right side. Like this side was fine. This side, not so much.
You can rupture lungs, sinuses, eardrums. Yeah, it's not a good thing.
No.
We're gonna hear a lot about it.
Would not recommend.
A lot of us are getting old, and we're just gonna start.
Would not recommend.
We're gonna start drooling and forgetting stuff. Well, we already are.
Like starting.
Too late.
It's gonna be the hallmark of. You'll be like, oh, were you a GWAT person? And you'll be like, huh?
What's a GWAT?
Like we're drunk all the time. All right, so I think one of the first things to bring up on the Lance Sijan story is that it highlights the air war over Vietnam. Thank God, since Vietnam, we really haven't experienced an air war like that. Obviously, the first major air war was World War II. Korea was pretty intense. Vietnam, and then when we got to Iraq. What's up?
Sorry, Gen X is in the house. And
oh, is he?
He says, I heard Kevin was airlifted once after stepping on a Lego.
Yeah, well, it hurt, and I spilled my cafe latte. My silk scarf. Where is it? It's over there. I should put it back here.
It's right there.
Yes. In the Air Force, we wear silk scarves.
There's an actual silk scarf,
yeah,
like right across the room.
Says Black Cat's greatest tactical aero squadron that ever lived. Anyway, so the Vietnam War. What was I saying? The Gulf War. I think a lot of the casualties were aircraft getting shot down, but it was by our own men, right? So that stuff can get pretty tricky, but. Right. But since then, we've dominated the skies, and we've picked foes that are still kind of living in the Stone Age. They have man pads. They have, anti-aircraft machine guns. Rarely do they have artillery after we take out their infrastructure. So it's just not the same as we experienced in Vietnam. They were losing aircraft at a rate of 20%. Keep in mind, they had to fly 100 missions to go home. So at a 20% rate, do the math, you're basically cheating death. Well, I would say daily, but in a major way, about 1 every 5 missions, if you're not actually shot down. Unbelievable. I think that was it the Chinese that were supplying or was it the Russians? God, I don't remember. I'm terrible at this part of history, but along the Ho Chi Minh Trail and along North Vietnam, they had some decent anti-aircraft ability, not to mention their MiG fighters. So yeah, it was never an easy task for them. They always had to look for MiGs coming in, or they had to look down at flak and AAA coming up at them. So I want to set the stage. 1966 is Operation Rolling Thunder. Sijan isn't in country yet. Rolling Thunder was basically, let's go in and pound the hell out of all these positions, right? Yep. Remember, 2 weeks ago, we talked about how Vietnam had hundreds of miles of tunnels. Right. So they weren't as effective as they would like them to be. The enemy would just go underground, where they had hospitals, they had battalions of men. They had, they had training facilities. So they would go down there and then come back up. So it wasn't as effective as we would like it to have been. So, even though they were running these operations, their ability to defend these positions still stayed relatively intact, kind of no matter what they did. There's a great documentary, if you guys haven't seen it, called 100 Missions Surviving Vietnam. Really good. In fact, we're going to talk about the star of it. I don't know, we'll say June or July, Robin Olds, but it follows a 10, I always get this, it's the 104 F-104 Thunder Chief, could be the F-105. I'm making a mistake there. I'm losing my Air Force.
If you're talking planes, you're talking French stereo instructions to me, man.
It was a Thunder Chief squadron out of Thailand with the F4s, and they were basically trying to figure out ways to destroy this anti-aircraft, their capabilities. Unbelievable story. Really gives you the good background of the air war over in Vietnam. Because when we think of Vietnam, we think of, Creedence Clearwater Revival helicopters and grunts going into the rice paddies, but half of that was flown, and most of the prisoners were pilots.
Yep.
Actually, I have a clip here. Jeremy, turn off. This is link 1. Turn off the sound so we don't get copyrighted. But this gives you a good idea. This is like an old school Vietnam. I don't know if this is. I think it might be yeah. See that? It might be from like early training or something like that. But this kind of gives you an idea of what Rolling Thunder and what they were trying to accomplish over there. So these are Navy pilots. And that might be that definitely wasn't an F4. Interesting fact. My dad was an airframe mechanic on F4s during Vietnam in the Navy. There's an F4.
They're putting down some hate and discontent.
Yeah, they dropped a lot of bombs on that country. There's some napalm right there.
Sticks to kids.
Pretty insane stuff. And the fact that they could land an F4 on an aircraft carrier.
A moving.
Yeah. I mean, I get the modern airplanes. It's still ballsy. But I mean, this is 1950s technology. Kind of a cool plane for it to have been, 60.
Yeah, they were not shy
70
with the
years
ordnance.
old. B-52 bombers, air-to-airs. So yeah, that gives you an idea of what Lance Sijan was doing well over. That's a A6 Intruder.
I know that because of a Gene Hackman movie.
That's right. Was that Gene? Oh, that what was that? Bat 2-1?
No, Bat 2-1. Yeah,
Bat 2-1 is a really good one. So is Flight of the Intruder. Anyways, pilots tasked with these missions face staggering odds of capture or death. Surface-to-air missiles, anti-aircraft guns, MiG fighters. Picture this: 1966. You're a pilot in Thailand. You're staring at your F4, knowing that you might not come back. Pretty much on every mission, like the nerves. You had to have to get in and know that and to be prepared for that. Because if you were shot down in Vietnam, your reception on the ground wasn't going to be good at all. In fact, there's tons of like black and white footage of these pilots. They would parade them through villages where they'd be stabbed with like pointy sticks and people would throw rocks at them and stuff like that. Reaching 100 missions offered hope in an otherwise hopeless place, but it also counted down. It was the countdown that haunted every takeoff. Is this the one that I'm not going to come back from? His story also highlights the extraordinary efforts of the American military, what they would do to bring back down pilots. Like if a pilot went down, search and rescue, like that would automatically activate, and hundreds of aircraft. Jeremy, we're watching a Pennzoil commercial.
My bad.
Pennzoil is not a sponsor of the show. Unless they want to be.
I said, well,
drink Pennzoil. Wait, what? The lessons learned in Vietnam are still applicable today. When we went through SEER school in the Air Force, and most of our tactics that we learned about survival and escape all came from that era. Those guys that did survive, because they had so many of them, were able to give so much good information about how to talk without giving up information, because they didn't have SEER in World War II, and it was a lot different, I suppose, as far as being captured. But they still, I mean, if you're captured, you're going to be tortured. You're going to be, you're in for a world of hurt, because you, as a flyer, you have lots of information. I mean, we all flew with TS, SCI clearances. We knew routes. We knew payloads. We knew everything about our aircraft, and to try to keep that as with trying not to give out as much information while surviving is a very, very delicate dance.
Well, it's one of those things that it's lessons in blood, right? So
yeah,
you guys didn't have SEER back then. But what you did was you took those lessons in lives and you created what needed to be created, which was what makes the Air Force great now. And you see that across like all military, platforms. Like we call it our pubs.
We call it the same thing.
It's like the EOD. It's the EOD Bible, and it's literally written in blood in the lives of former EOD techs and and team leaders. Like their sacrifices is what literally makes our book, and that book is alive. It's forever growing. So it makes sense that since you guys didn't have SEER back then, and now you do, and it's because of like what's going on. Why Vietnam was such a valuable lesson because of the air to air that was going on.
Yeah, we actually in our pubs we had red letter things. So we called it red letter because it was written in the blood of people who. But yeah, you didn't want to mess up a red letter. I can't remember what's called, like a red letter instruction or a red letter whatever. And in fact, I knew a crew that almost died because someone screwed up a red letter thing. Yeah, they put a bolt in backwards. I think I talked about it a while ago, but that's for another time. Back to Sijan. He was born in April of 1942 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to a Serbian-American restaurant owner and an Irish-American. The eldest of three, Lance grew up in a tight-knit community, excelling as a all-city football player at Bayview High School. At 6'2", 210 pounds, he was a natural athlete, also shining in swimming and track, but Lance had bigger dreams than the gridiron. He wanted to fly. After graduating high school in 1960, he attended the Naval Academy Preparatory School in Maryland, a stepping stone to his ultimate goal, the United States Air Force Academy. He was eventually admitted to the Academy in 1965. Like I said, the Academy was brand new back in these days, so it was they were basically writing the books as well. I mean, I assume they probably based it on the military academy, the Army over at West Point and Annapolis. But still, it was very new at the time. We talked a lot about this too in the past with recruitment issues today, and 74% of kids having chronic illness, obesity, drug use, mental health issues, and why they can't recruit people. But one of the biggest pools that they used to recruit from, I mean, this is our second veteran, and I'm sure the others had. Well, yeah, I mean, we talked about Wyatt last week. He was a big athlete. I
was gonna go there.
Yeah, Flaherty was an athlete because he wanted to prove himself. That pool, that used to be where they pulled people, and sports participation across the country is down. Well, and that's having a detriment. I mean, 74% can't.
And there's
serve.
A parallel to military and sports as far as like the team aspect and the leadership aspect. Right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You have the past, I think 3 people that we've talked about were like, to include Tillman, like
Tillman,
these were
professional football players,
sports, like they were part of teams and they were successful on those teams. And even if they weren't, you still have there's that team aspect that's like, how to play within what you know how to take instruction.
Sure.
Because you have a coach, you have coaches. So you know how to take instruction.
And overcome adversity.
Right.
Doing 2-a-days in 95-degree heat.
Exactly. But now, to your point, we have a lot of obesity. We have, kids on the spectrum and autism and ADHD. And so we have all that. So it's the pool in which the military pulled from is dwindled.
It's by a lot. Jeremy, I assume the band gave you responsibility and time management, right? I mean, I'm not joking. It probably did.
No, you're right.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You had to practice. You had to have some sort of discipline.
I mean, being in band and when I was in high school, I mean, they taught us the same thing as like I did in the military: to be early is to be on time, to be on time is to be late. It taught you had to work together with people, and
you march.
Have to be in unison with everybody. Everybody to look alike. So it's people will try to say it's no different than the military, but the principles are still the same.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at the band too, like if you look at a lot of the college bands, especially a lot of the HBCU bands, they're in better shape than a lot of the athletes that are on the field that they're playing for. They have to be.
Do you remember that 6'5" fella that was tackled? We showed that video. You remember that? He got tackled and he was very sassy.
But everyone's like, but he popped right back.
I know. Everyone's like, that dude should be a linebacker. He was a cheerleader. Anyways, so 1965, Sijan graduated from the Air Force Academy and commissioned as a second lieutenant. He trained to pilot the F-4C Phantom II, a twin-engine all-weather fighter jet used extensively in Vietnam for ground attacks and reconnaissance. Actually, it was used up until recently. They retired. I say recently, but my brain seems to think that we were just over in Iraq, and that was 21 years ago.
Yeah, I don't like to think about that.
But we were using them. I don't know if we had them at the invasion of Iraq. We may have, because they were doing the Wild Weasel missions. So they might have been still in use. I'm not sure, but it was only, we'll say recently in the GWAT that they were retired. If not, they definitely used them in the first Gulf War, which is a whole 30 some odd years ago. Crazy to think about. By 1967, First Lieutenant Sijan was stationed at Da Nang Air Base with the 480th Tactical Fighter Squadron, part of the 366 Fighter Wing. He flew 66 combat missions, including a notable sortie on August 22nd, 1967, where he earned the Distinguished Flying Cross for striking a heavily defended storage area under intense ground fire. His skill and bravery were already turning heads. Now, the DFC is the highest, I believe. Well, there's still Silver Stars and stuff. So I don't know where it's up there. If you earn a DFC, people are like, whoa, you've flown the hell out of that airplane. You are a cut above.
Distinguished Flying Cross, I think it's either 4th or 5th highest.
Yeah, it's up there. If you earn,
I looked at it, it's up there.
If you among aviators, if you have a DFC, yeah, you're a cut above, because they don't give those out too often. Anyways, I had some pictures of the F4. If you want to bring them up, Jeremy, link 3, just to give you an idea of the aircraft he was flying. Kind of a cool airplane. Like I said, I mean, this thing was built in you can just click on any of those. It was built, or it was designed in the 1950s and then came online, I think in 1960, 1961, something like that. It was a 2-seater, capable of Mach 2, which was pretty cool in those days. They called it the brick because it was big. It was big and heavy. They said that the stick had a 25-pound counterweight on it. So when you're on the ground, you had to take a 25-pound weight and hold it into your crotch, basically, as you're steering. They had a nose steering mechanism on the front of it. There was no padding on the back. It wasn't very comfortable. I mean, it's straight out of the 1960s. Get into a 1960, I don't know, Chevy Bel Air and tell me, actually, it might have been comfortable. They made those things like couches back then, but drive one and you'll see how this thing most likely handled for its time.
Drove like a freaking couch.
Yeah. I have some specs on it, but we covered most of that. Pilots had a complex relationship with the Phantom. To fly it was to tame a beast, demanding but rewarding. Its raw power and versatility earned devotion, but its quirks tested the nerves. The good. Pilots loved the Phantom's speed and payload. It could carry anything but the kitchen sink, one pilot commented. Its thrust let it climb like a rocket, and its radar gave it an edge on detecting targets. In Vietnam, pilots like Robin Olds, who led Operation Bolo in 1967, used the F4 to lure and destroy MiGs, racking up kills. The 2-seat setup fostered tight bonds between pilots and VSOs. In the one that Sijan was on, there was actually a backseat pilot. They kind of did a dual role. But yeah, and I've talked to a lot of F-15E pilots, and they specifically wanted to fly that plane because of the crew aspect. Something can be said about having another aviator right here. You know, if you're on your own, say in an F-16, you're it. You're your trouble. What do you call it? Your cascade of figuring out trouble, or figuring out there's a name for it. I can't remember. It's been years, but if something goes wrong, you're the only one in there that's going to have to troubleshoot everything that's happening. And yeah, so they liked it because of that. The Viet Cong hated it because it could drop a heck of a lot of munitions on target at night. Napalm, which was nobody enjoyed having that dropped on them. And they were flying around the clock, so they could hit a bridge, and by the time the smoke cleared and you were ready to start repairs, in comes a whole new squadron of
the sorties coming in,
ready to destroy you. So so this all brings us up to November 9th, 1967. This is the fateful mission and what earned Sijan the Medal of Honor. So in the fall of 1967, traffic was surging on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Well, we'll bring that up in a second. It was the lifeline in which North Vietnam sustained the war in the South. The trail can be seen running from, I think, all the way up near Laos, all the way down to South Vietnam, entering different aspects along Cambodia. I think Cambodia is in the north, Laos, and then South Vietnam. The target that he was trying to hit was in the Annam Mountains. If you bring up link 5, I have a map of where it is. And then link 6 and 7, if you just want to go 5, 6, and 7, shows the actual target that he was hitting on that day. Truck convoys were departing from the supply hub at Vinh. I assume that's how you say it, Vinh in North Vietnam, and they gained access to the Ho Chi Minh Trail through the Mu Gai and the Ban Karai passes in the mountains. These passes were heavily defended with anti-aircraft artillery. So yeah, you can see, I mean, it was jungle. It was basically a mud, dirt path that the Americans couldn't stop. No matter what we did, they could just get out there, fill in the holes, and keep the troops moving and keep the supplies moving. 1 in 5 aircraft tasked with bombing the supply route was shot down by enemy aircraft, artillery, and missiles. Traffic on the road moves mostly at night. During daylight hours, the trucks hit under camouflage or in concealed parking areas of the jungle. Then they decided, hey, let's hit it with this stuff called Agent Orange. And we should do a whole episode on that, because I've had Vietnam vets on the show, and I know Vietnam vets where, I mean, Dave Landau's dad was hit with Agent Orange, and it destroyed lives, even destroyed the children of these veterans, had all sorts of issues with it. In a renewed effort to interdict the flow of troops and supplies, the Air Force in November 1967 doubled the number of attack sorties flown against the trail. The targets included not only truck convoys, but also choke points like the passes. Sijan was assigned to the 366 Tactical Fighter Wing, which flew the Air Force's F-4C. We've covered that. He was flying as a backseat pilot, which was crewed with Lieutenant Colonel John W. Armstrong, commander of the 480th Tactical Fighter Squadron. So far, he had flown 66 combat missions, which he was over the hump. He was on his way out, which is kind of adds a little bit of more tragedy to this. He was looking after this mission to upgrade to the front seat before this tour was over. So Ban Lobby Ford. On November 9th, Armstrong and Sijan briefed for a night attack mission. The target was the Ban Loboy Ford, a river crossing on the Ho Chi Minh Trail just inside Laos at the Ben Kari Pass. This is link 8. If you look, and I guess this probably adds to the difficulty of targeting these things, that's it, right? That, to me, that just looks like a river. But it's shallow enough. I didn't put the link in here. I did find some video of trucks driving through it. It was about 2 feet of water. And so they could cross there and then continue on the trail. So it's not like these things were sticking out like I-40 in Raleigh. I mean, these were, you basically had your reconnaissance troops giving you coordinates and you were going in there. And then along the banks on each side, they had AAA, and at the time, I think they had SA-7s. That might have been available in Vietnam. That's the shoulder-fired man-pad with a heat-seeker missile on it. I'm pretty sure, I don't know when in Vietnam, but I'm pretty sure they had those in Vietnam. Heck, they still used them in Iraq. They were pretty cheap and they're everywhere. I mean, the Russians basically sold them to all their people. It was a 2-ship night flight. The call sign for Armstrong and Sijan was AWOL-01, with the second aircraft being AWOL-02. It was dark when they took off from Da Nang at 8 p.m. Central Vietnam is very narrow. I don't know how wide it is, but it's not very wide as far as how, the country kind of is just one big strip down the coast with the mountain passes on the western side. The landscape rises from the Annam Cordella chain, which divides Vietnam from Laos. The Ban Kari Pass cuts through the mountains close to what was in 1967 the border between North and South Vietnam. Over the pass, the F-4s linked up with a forward air controller. Those guys are cool. We've talked a lot about them. Yeah. They still had them back then. So they had some dude sitting in the jungle looking at this and calling in these, and they weren't using lasers like we do today.
No, just straight like positions, like, hit here.
Yeah, I have no idea, actually. Yeah, I guess they had a grid and they had a pair of binoculars and they made sure they got the right place. He marked the Ban-Boy Ford for them with flares. Oh, so he was using flares. So I don't know if he was just chucking them.
I would, because I would chuck it as far away from me as possible.
Yeah, and not being anywhere near that area. Each F-4C was carrying 6 750-pound bombs. At 8:39 p.m., AWOL-01 rolled in on the target and released the bombs. Suddenly, the aircraft exploded and was engulfed in a ball of fire. It plunged in the jungle below. I found some footage just to kind of to give some realism to this. This is link 9 of an F4 being shot down in Vietnam with the audio. I think what they did is these might not be connected, but they took the audio and they put it on another F4 getting shot down. But this is pretty crazy. Can you give it a little more volume?
Okay. Oh, shit. Buster's hit. Hard. Fill up. Okay, I'm marking
One shoot, two
Two
shoots.
shoots.
coordinates 2112, 10633. Buster, fill up. That's one hot dog. Mayday. That's 2, 6, been shot down.
Those are the wingmen calling that part in.
Okay.
So once those canopies, all right, you can bring it down. Once those canopies deploy and your bad day just got worse.
Oh, yeah.
Because now you're on the ground. You're most likely injured. We had Kagan Gill. I should give or I don't know. It might still be on the site. Kagan Gill was a F-18 pilot that we had on the show that bailed out at the speed of sound, Mach 1, and basically shattered his entire body, head to toe. Almost died, landed in the Atlantic. It was cold enough that it stopped the bleeding, and he somehow survived. But yeah, that happens, and it's bad, and then it just gets worse. And if you heard, I don't know if you heard that, but they were marking the spot. They had something called an INS, an inertial navigation system, very old school, not GPS, but worked very similar to GPS, but they would mark the coordinates. And from that moment, literally once you hear Mayday back at the command center, the Sandy, the search and rescue mission gets underway. And it is a massive undertaking. When I was in, I don't know where I was at the time. I think I was in Kuwait. After I got hurt, I worked at a tactics shop, and I want to say a helicopter went down. It might have been in the Persian Gulf, and a bunch of people were missing, and the Seer guys were part of the search and rescue. And like immediately they were somehow there, and we were getting maps and we were planning everything out. They already had aircraft up, but yeah, it's a pretty intense search and rescue. They want to get those pilots back. Initial reports attributed the explosion to ground fire, but there's considerable belief now that the defective fuses caused the bombs to detonate prematurely, exploding within 50 feet of the airplane. Neither AWOL-2 nor the forward air controller saw a parachute, but there was a survivor. Sijan had gotten out. Armstrong was not heard from again and is presumed to have been killed in action. So you got to, like I said, these planes are moving really fast. They're coming in. They don't want to loiter in the area longer than they have to, because they have AAA coming at them, rockets, whatever else they can throw up at them, and perhaps MiGs coming in defense. So they're moving pretty fast. So once you eject, that's a violent situation. Sijan's parachute snagged on trees as he crashed into a jagged rocky ridgeline, sustaining catastrophic injuries: a fractured skull, a mangled right hand, a compound fracture of his leg, deep lacerations. He had no survival kit, no food, and minimal water. He was alone in the dense Laotian jungle. He was 100 miles from friendly forces, surrounded by enemy patrols. So again, just imagine that chaos. 1 second you're snug as a bug in the rug, and you're in your fighter plane. And I always think that, like, when something goes wrong, you think about 5 minutes before that, you had no concept that this was about to happen. So that whole situation probably took a minute, if that, between you ejecting. So you're safe. 60 seconds later, you are shattered on the floor of the jungle with bad guys coming in to get you. I mean, that's just a crazy concept.
I never thought about that, because now that you bring that up, I'm just remembering now. Before I got hit by the IED, about 10 minutes before that, 5 to 10 minutes before that, I just finished a double chocolate chip Otis Spunkmeyer muffin, which I will never eat those ever again because I have way too many. And I was washing it down with we call them mortar rounds, but they were like the big cans of Monster. It was a pineapple Monster, and I just finished it, and I like put the can like down beneath,
And we wonder why GWAT veterans are so unhealthy.
and then 5 minutes later, 200-pound IED to the right side of my face.
Yeah. 1 second you're good. The next second your life is totally screwed.
Yep.
I mean, it's like literally unbelievable the way
Yep.
that happens. The search and rescue team were assembled immediately, including a C-130 airborne command post, codenamed Crown, a Jolly Green Giant. Jolly Green Giants are cool. That's a helicopter they don't use anymore. A-1 Sandy escorts, O-2 Ford air controllers, F-4s, and F-100s. Sijan had expended his flares early, signaling to the fighter aircraft before Sandys and the Jolly Green Giants got there. I'm actually not sure what this link is. I have Vietnam Rescue. Pull up link 10. I didn't put too many long links in here, so it might just show you. Yeah, let's see it.
Started. Generators.
Oh yeah. This is a rescue operation. Someone filmed in Vietnam. Kind of gives you the idea of the helicopters, and they actually interview the pilot on here, which is pretty insane.
Harness. Fasten pilot. Fasten go down. Fasten engineer. Park brakes.
Here's the Jolly Green.
Oh, that's a big boy.
After the aircraft blew up around me, I thought I was dead at first right there. You get that feeling, all of a sudden you're just dead.
That's what what's his name flew in Bat 2-1, remember?
Yep.
No, it wasn't Morgan Freeman. That's called so there's a pararescue going down. They have something called a ground penetrator, which will actually get through the canopy and you can jump onto.
Or just throw white phosphorus at it.
Yeah.
That's literally what that is white phosphorus. Just burn it all. That's cool.
So we don't have video of what. There's the A-1. That's the Sandy light attack aircraft. So we don't have footage of what happened, but this is basically what they saw. I mean, this is what was going on. This guy was lucky.
Hold your hover. Survivor's coming up. It's about 10 foot off the ground. Hold your hover.
We got to train doing that. It was some of the coolest training.
10 foot below the aircraft. Hold your hover, babe. Hold your hover. 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 Survivor's at the door. Survivor's coming in the door. Survivor, finish secure. Let's get the hell out of here. Okay, talk to me. We're coming out.
Yeah, they're getting shot at during this too. It's not like they're just hanging out.
Yeah. And that's what the other guys are there for. They're just laying down hate and discontent.
Yeah. Look how happy that guy is. Man, he was lucky. Anyway, so yeah, there you go. That's a does it have his name? I'm gonna have to look that up.
Captain Gerald Lawrence.
All right, I'm gonna have to look him up, see whatever happened to him. The attempt to locate Sijan to get him off the mountain went all day. Eventually, 108 aircraft were involved in the rescue operation on November 11th. Anti-aircraft guns, some of them as large as 37 millimeter, were firing from all directions. 9 of the rescue aircraft were hit by ground fire, and an A-1 Sandy went down in the jungle. Sijan was difficult to find in the triple canopy jungle. The rescuers couldn't see him. He couldn't see them. They tried homing in on Sijan's homing signal, as well as having him tell them where the aircraft engines were the loudest. They trained us on this too. Like out in Spokane, Washington, you would have a radio and the helicopter, literally, it was good training because the helicopters themselves had no idea where you were, and you would call them in by their sound. And then you would, as they came over, you would like give them a clock and position, and they could look down and see you. And then you had like panels and stuff, and then they would drop the ground penetrator in. It was, like I said, it was really cool training. The best chance for success came late in the day when a Jolly Green helicopter got a fix on his approximate location. He was so close. Sijan and the Jolly, Sijan told the Jolly to send down its jungle penetrator. That's it's a big metal hunk that unfolds, and then you can sit on it and then strap in so it can get through the canopy. That's the whole point of it. If you just dropped ropes, it would just get caught up in the trees. But he told him not to put a pararescue jumper on the ground because the North Vietnamese army patrols were moving in the area. His last known communications were, there's bad guys down here. Just drop the penetrator. I see you. Stay where you are. I'm coming to you. The helicopter dropped the penetrator, hovered for 33 minutes, but could not raise Sijan again on the radio. Finally, with the ground fire increasing, the Jolly Green pulled out. Kind of sucks. He was that close. he was that close. But you have to remember, and I've read stories about his predicament. He had a compound fracture of his leg, right? So his bone's sticking out. He can't walk. So he's pushing himself, and this is jagged, rocky terrain. This isn't like a rice paddy, which still would suck, I guess, but I think it would be a lot better to drag yourself through a rice paddy than jagged rocks, where it had just tore up his flight suit, was like completely gone, and it tore through his flesh all the way to the bone. Like he had just pushed himself so long that he was just completely tore up. The search and well, basically they couldn't get him. And at this point, and this is where the story gets even more amazing, they didn't know so from that point on, they didn't know what happened to him until 1973, when the last of the Hanoi Hilton survivors were released, and they actually gave a detailed account because he told them what he had gone through. It was something like, actually I have it here. Well, I've got a lot of notes, but I want to try to, because we've been going for a long time. Whatever, we'll just go through it. So after he lost contact, it was Christmas Day. The next 46 days were painstakingly reconstructed by these. So these two guys, let me back up. All right, there are these two guys that end up knowing Sijan in the Hanoi Hilton, and they were Robert Craner and Guy Gruters. They were both pilots that were shot down, and they spent 3 weeks with him in captivity. A man by Malcolm McDonnell actually wrote a book called In the Mouth of the Cat that retold the story that these guys told about Sijan. So 46 days he was evading for 46 days. Shortly after dawn on December 25th, the North Vietnamese truck convoy were able to move in daylight because the bombing halt for Christmas found Sijan laying in the road. He was 3 miles from where he went down on November 9th. So 46 days of surviving, he was eating grasses, leaves. He was drinking the dew off the plants. And he only moved 3 miles. And I guess he just constantly moved in order to keep from being overrun by enemy looking for him. At this point, I mean, you would think after 3 weeks, everyone would have given up at that point trying to find him. And maybe they did. And he just had bad luck with the truck rolling up to him at some point. But anyway, somehow he survived and he eluded the enemy. He had lost his survival kit. His batteries had run down. He was intermittently unconscious and delirious and able to move only by crawling. It's that alone, I think, makes him like at any time he could have got an NVA patrol and at least been taken captive, which would, and I don't know. I was going to say, in my opinion, would be a better decision, but he held the idea that he was going to evade and not become a prisoner of war, not become a tool of propaganda. It was in his mind, he was going to consistently resist. Right? He was going to resist by not being captured. He was going to escape, or he was going to be rescued. Those were his only options. He did not want to be captured. And he
upheld the principles of seer without there being a seer. Like if there were a model of what you would need to do in a seer environment, this was it.
Yeah. Yeah. And like survive. I said, we still learn from this guy.
It's like, first of all, survive. He survived. Yeah. Evade, which he did, like, and he was, and that goes into, the resisting part of it. So it's like he's doing everything you're supposed to do, having never, because again, seer did not exist at this point.
Yeah.
And he's doing exactly what you should do in an environment for
and it wasn't survival for survival's sake. It was survival with honor.
Yep.
Which is just unbelievable. So, okay, I jumped ahead of myself. On November 9th, he was shot down. On Christmas Day, 1967, he starved and unconscious, collapsed on the dirt road along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and that's where they cut. So imagine that too. You realize you're caught on Christmas Day, and everybody at home has no idea what happened to you. Are you alive or you're dead? Your friends and, well, maybe not family, but people are celebrating Christmas, and here you are, pretty much the lowest point. He was emaciated, weighing barely 100 pounds. He was taken to the People's Army of Vietnam camp near the Ben Kari Pass. That's the place he was set to blow up. and put him in a bamboo hut with a thatched roof. He lay on a bamboo mat. When he regained consciousness, the shredded remains of his flight suit had been stripped away. He was dressed in a black cotton shirt and trousers. The left leg of his trousers had been cut away to accommodate for his swollen leg. It gets more interesting. Hold on. There's a reason why we're talking about Sijan. His captors gave him rice and boiled greens. He drank some water but was unable to eat. The North Vietnamese didn't give him any of their medical supplies. Several days after he was captured, Sijan noticed a mountain tribesman outside the hut. He took him to be a mountain guard. I don't know. He'd been told in training that if he could make contact with the mountain guards, they might get him to the hands of the U.S. Reconnaissance Patrol. Sijan's account of what happened next was later confirmed by the Rodent, a North Vietnamese officer who talked to Craner and Gruters. Those are the pilots that were with him in Vinh. Sijan waited until a single soldier was left to guard him. Remember, compound fracture of his leg, mangled hand, skull fracture. He lured the guard close, then overcame him and rendered him unconscious with a left-handed chop to the base of his skull. He tied the guard's shirt around his swollen leg, took his carbine, and crawled back into the jungle. My man. Overpowering a guard in his state, broken, starved, barely alive.
You had
It
me.
takes that
you
level-
had me at left-handed chop.
Yeah, left-handed. Remember we talked about that with Flaherty? The 60s were really into that kung fu magic, and gave him a left-hand chop.
This is where Tim Kennedy gets it from.
Yeah. Tim Kennedy. Compare yourself to Sijan here. He probably would. Probably tell a story how he got shot down. But I digress. The escape attempt was short-lived. They captured him a few days later. But it still sent a message that this dude's not going down of his own free will. No, not going to happen. Major Bob Craner and Captain Gruters, after they got shot down and whatever, let's see, it goes in a little detail about what happened with them, but they were brought together and put on a truck and taken on December 26th to a holding point in Vinh. It was North Vietnamese Army facility known variously to POWs as the Bamboo Prison, Bao Cow, or Ducks Camp. The prison was a wood frame structure with dirt floors, bamboo partitions, small cells on either side of a hallway that ran to the center. Link 11 shows you kind of what they're describing here. Craner and Gruters were interrogated and tortured by an English-speaking rat-faced officer they called the Rodent. All-American POWs you would initially be tortured locally, and then they would bring you to like a major place. Like, yeah, there you go. If you've seen any Vietnam movie, Missing in Action, anything like that, you're familiar with the bamboo huts. The Deer Hunter is another good one that shows those. Sijan was brought to the bamboo prison on January 1st, 1968. His weight was down to less than 100 pounds. Remember, he's 6'2". So less than 100 pounds is literally skin and bones. He was covered with sores. They put him in one of the end cells directly across from Craner and Gruter's cell. But there was an empty cell between them. It was at night when he arrived. The prison was unlit except for the interrogator's flickering lamp. Craner couldn't see him through the partitions, but at a distance of 10 feet, he could hear everything. The Rodent pressed Sijan for military information. Sijan's voice was weak but determined. Sijan, my name is Lance Peter Sijan. He gave only his name, rank, and service number and refused to answer any questions, even when the Rodent twisted his injured leg. The whole affair went on for an hour and a half over and over again, and the guy just wouldn't give in, Craner said. He'd say, all right, you son of a bitch, wait till I get better. You're really going to get it. And giving him all kinds of lip about, but no information. He had been put in a cast reaching from his thigh to his ankle, but not for medical reasons. It was to immobilize him so he couldn't escape anymore. That's what the Rodent, because apparently the Rodent was interviewed after the war, and that's what he said. They put him on that so he couldn't try to break out again.
How badass do you have to be? You have a skull fracture, zero use of your right hand, an open compound fracture on your leg, and you're 6'2", under 100 pounds, and they have to put a cast on your leg so you can stop escaping.
Yeah. even when he had to struggle to get words out. So he was in and out of consciousness. And that's something that those two pilots kept saying. He just wasn't in a good way. Obviously, infection. Apparently, he developed pneumonia. He couldn't eat. He was just dwindling away. Even when he struggled to get words out, he would ask, "Are we going to get out of here? When are we going to get out of here?" So he was constantly focused on escaping. He dwelled on the point that he had escaped once, and he thought he could do it again. He didn't talk about the pain. When asked, he minimized the importance of it. After several days, Craner and Gruters were taken to Sijan's cell to help him to a truck that would transport him to the Hanoi Hilton. We were both tall men, Gruters said. When we had him upright, we saw he was taller than both of us. He said, "This guy's pretty big with a large frame, but he was just skin and bones." Interestingly, Sijan looked at Gruters and recognized him. They were classmates at the Air Force Academy. So that's pretty crazy. So anyways, they moved him up to the Hanoi Hilton. If you guys have ever seen the Hanoi Hilton, there's link 12 and link 13, Jeremy. We got Lance off the truck. They brought out a wooden pallet and used it as a stretcher, just 4 boards nailed together. We carried him into the How Low complex. That's where we met the Bug, the most infamous English speaker in Hanoi. Bug was short and fat with a cataract in one eye. As an indication of his specialty, some POWs called him Mr. Blue after the color of the torture rooms at one of the prison camps. So if you can, I don't know if you can blow that up, but it'll actually show you the different sections. Like on the bottom right is Little Vegas. I don't know how they got these names. The left is where the new guys would come in. What do you call it? Wikipedia sucks when you're trying to bring those things up. But all right, no worries. It's not that big a deal. But you get the basic layout. It's not that big, but they would come in on the bottom left there. The top right is kind of where you would be tortured and all that. And then after they were done with you, they put you in the bottom right-hand corner, which was the Little Vegas. Oh, yeah, and that's basically what my notes say. They initially went to the New Guy village, where the North Vietnamese made a special effort to break the Americans early in their captivity. The prisoners were kept apart except at mealtime twice a day when Sijan was brought to Craner and Gruder so they could help him eat. It was difficult to get him to take any food. After a few days, the 3 were put in Little Vegas in a triple cell. There was standing water on the cement floor, and the cell was cold and dank. A medic they called Camp Doctor came in periodically wearing a Red Cross armband. Camp Doctor would look and cluck and walk back out. He never touched him. Eventually, he cut the cast off Sijan's leg and gave him shots of a yellow fluid presumed to be an antibiotic. He also kept intravenous feeding apparatus beside Sijan in his state of delirium, would pull the needle out at night. Often when Sijan was lucid, aware, and focused, it was always, how secure is this place? How are we going to get out of here? Let's come up with a plan of escape. He tried to do some arm exercises so he could be ready to take part in the escape. He really, really kept the faith under horrific punishment, Gruder said. Unfortunately, Sijan's developed pneumonia on January 18th and was removed from the cell on January 21st. He died on January 22nd. But it was a while before Craner and Gruters knew that. They were transferred to the Plantation, a smaller prisoner camp a few miles away. Craner encountered the Bug in the courtyard there and asked about Sijan. And he said, "Sijan spent too long in the jungle. Sijan dead." When the POWs came home in 1973, Craner nominated Lance Sijan for the Medal of Honor. He was what the military hopes it can produce in every man, but rarely does. And that's basically it. I mean, his story ends there. It's something that they teach you in SEER school, and they use Lance Sijan obviously as your archetypal model American prisoner of constantly wanting to escape. Is the code of conduct. Did you guys have to memorize the code of conduct?
Yeah, and it's the thing is, like, we're told, you're told to, one, you never, you sterilize. You never give information. You just give like just your name, what have you. But it's like you should always be thinking about escape.
Yeah,
like you observe. You like always thinking about escape. Always thinking about, you never want to be, because you knew, and then without even being told, you knew that wasn't the right place to be, and it was like in your head, like, okay, they're going to kill me.
Plus, everything you give up, it could cost American lives.
Right. And so, to the point where you didn't even give false information.
Sure. Yeah. Or again, a lot of it is secret information, meaning the procedures that you do.
Right.
But there are ways you're trained to give the illusion that you're giving information. You're not lying, because if they catch you in a lie, you're screwed.
Right.
You're not telling. You are telling the truth, but it's. I went in. So how they do SEER school is you have no training, and you're out learning how to evade and do all that. And then they bring you down and they're like, oh, good job being out in the field. The trucks are going to come and take you back to the hotel or whatever. And then you're sitting there, they give you MREs, you're fat, dumb, and happy. And then these fake bad guys come out firing blanks and screaming and throwing flashbangs, and your face is in the dirt, hood on your head. You're thrown in the back of a deuce and a half, driven for like, I swear they just drove around the field, because you're just driving forever, bouncing and all that. And then they take you to a prisoner of war camp, based off of, what these Vietnam guys described camps being like. And I mean, the torture, it sucked. They had these 55-gallon drums buried in the ground, and they had like chain link over them. And they had, holes like just about here, just enough to freak you out, as they dropped a hose in there and filled them with water. They would like lower you in with these ropes up underneath your legs. They had they would bring you to like what do you call it? Well, you had a cell that, for me, being only 5'9", 5'10", it was fine for me, but my bigger friends, they didn't like it, because I could kind of stand up, and you were in there for like 36 hours. No food. We had a coffee can that you had to pee, and God forbid anyone pooped in one of those. In the back, I kind of used it as a pillow, because I would get myself down and try to like relax a little bit. But yeah, no, the training was great. The training was intense. But you go in, and when you're getting questioned, interrogated, you have no idea of what you're supposed to say or do. And so I was like, I'm going to be tight-lipped. I'm not going to say anything. And I got my ass kicked. I mean, I broke a tooth. I got hit so hard in the face, my molar cracked, and they almost rolled me out to go get it fixed. And I'm like, I don't want to go through this again. I'm like, no, I'm fine. And they made me take a glass of ice water and swish to show that it didn't hurt. And it actually didn't. So luckily I stayed in. Then you come out, and then you go through like 2 or 3 weeks of like classroom training. And what's funny about the classroom is you're sitting there, and there's a big screen, and they have interrogation rooms in the back, and they're like, we need 3 volunteers. And you're like, come on. So they would, some people would raise their hand, and they would take them in the interrogation room, and then they would give them techniques, and they would just beat on these guys and get them to spill their guts. And then they would come back in the room, and they would be like, all right, this is what they did wrong. This is what you should do. So it was really good training. And they taught you, like I said, in the end, they taught you how to survive without betraying the code of conduct. And it was really good. It was some of the best training I ever had besides flying. The 3 articles that I think he embodied was Article 2, I will never surrender of my own free will. Article 3, if I'm captured, I will continue to resist by all means possible. I will make every effort to escape and aid others to escape. I mean, the dude wrote this basically. Article 5, when questioned, should I become a prisoner of war, I am bound to give my name, rank, and service number and date of birth. I will evade answering further questions to the utmost of my ability. I will make no oral or written statements disloyal to my country or its allies or harmful to their cause. So the North Vietnamese routinely ignored the Geneva Convention. They tortured POWs. I just would never want to be in one of these dudes' positions.
I will always say that the Geneva Convention was written just for us. Like, and I say this, and it's as controversial as it will be. If ever the U.S. decided to say, you know what, screw the Geneva Convention, and we just went all out,
CIA black sites.
no one, and I mean no one on this planet, would bother or even attempt to provoke the U.S. because we're sick. Like, and I say that to say, if normal people knew what we have in as far as weapons and the capability that we have, and some of the munitions that we have as far as like bombs and such and stuff like that, if they knew what we had and what these things could do to people,
Yeah.
it would like.
Well,
I don't know what the person that designed some of these things was on, but it's some insidious stuff.
remember we had the helicopter pilot on that talked about the, what are they called? Fletchings?
Flechette?
Flechette? Yeah.
Flechette
yeah.
rounds.
It was like the rocket would explode and these flechettes would come out, which were little tiny darts.
Tungsten steel darts.
Yeah. And thousands of them would go out and just.
Yeah. And that's all kinetic force. And the thing that people like, my very first deployment, I went to dispersing because they didn't have like all the electronics stuff now as far as getting your money. So you would go and get like actual cash.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody would set up and they would have all the hard records and they knew what was in your account. And they'd ask you how much money you wanted, and they had actual cash, and they would, and then you'd get the cash, they'd write it down, and then later on they would take the money and it would come out of your account over time.
Yeah,
because it was all paper. But we're in this building, and I remember thinking how funny it was because everything had dots on it because the sun was poking through these dots. And I'm sitting there like, oh, that's cool. Like, why would they do that? I'm like, oh, in my brain, I'm like, oh, they did this for ventilation.
Yeah.
For us because it's hot and it's the desert. And I made a point to say, I was like, oh, well, they did all this ventilation for us. And Gunny Gatewood looked at me and he said, yeah, they did it just for you. And he said it in a real sarcastic manner. So I asked my Gunny and I was like, what did Gunny G mean by that? He was like, well, they bombed the S out of this.
Yeah.
And that's because of the flechette rounds. And I'm like, what? And he starts looking around on the ground and he finds one.
Oh, wow.
And it's like it looks like an actual dart.
Yeah, it looks like a little dart.
A tungsten steel dart. And it goes through everything.
Yep.
Literally everything.
Like a hot knife through butter.
People included.
I have a similar story in Kirkuk, Iraq. We were engines off for whatever reason, and I was gonna go take a nap under, those like corrugated steel pole, like they would park their cars under these awnings, basically. And I went over there, and I was just head back. I kind of probably put my jacket up under me, and I'm trying to sleep, and the sun went into my eyes, and I looked up, and I'm like, huh, and then I looked, I'm like, wow, this roof has just got lots of holes in it. And then I rolled over and I looked at the ground because this was months after the invasion. I look at the ground and I'm like, the ground is all pockmarked and it's stained a very dark color. And I was like, I'm going to move. And mind you, there's all these destroyed armored personnel carriers. Yeah, they're there.
Flechette rounds.
There's all these destroyed pieces of AAA and armored personnel carrier all pushed off to the side of this area. And I'm like, this is no. And I went, and what we used to do is actually sleep up on the wing of the plane. But that's seen the effect of that.
Because somebody said, hey, let's put these darts and these munitions, have these munitions, have an expelling charge and these emissions, and it doesn't have to push them either. It's literal, just gravity and and whatever's there is not there, or if it's there, it's not happy.
McCain wrote, this is the last quote here. McCain wrote, and I get McCain gets a lot of guff, but he was shot down, he was tortured. Yep. You got to give credit where credit's due. He was also given, they were going to let him leave because his dad was an admiral in the Navy, and he said, no, I'm staying with my people. And I give him credit for that. But he said, and I quote, a few of us ever seriously contemplated escape, and our senior officers never encouraged it. A few brave men tried, all were caught and tortured. Neither did every prisoner refrain from providing information beyond the bare essentials sanctioned by the code. Many of us were terrorized into failure at one time or another, but Captain Sijan wasn't. He obeyed the code to the letter. And then link 14. I don't think I even showed a picture of Captain Sijan. But there's not that many of him. There's one of it. He's getting into his plane, but there he is. Stud. That's probably his Air Force Academy photograph. But so, yet another example of an unbelievable U.S. service member that just was the uncommon valor, the uncommon of the uncommon valor, the maybe 1%. We can even drop it down to 0.5%.
Well, it's the 1% of the 1%. Because my question to you is this: So think about Vietnam, drafts going on,
Mhm.
and it's a virtual meat grinder. They're just literally just putting
Yeah, all the working class poor kids
it's
are
just
getting
putting
sent.
bodies and they're just throwing bodies at it, and they give these kids give them a plastic rifle and say go that way.
Yeah.
So for the pilots, do you think that a lot of the casualties for the pilots had anything to do with the youth and inexperience of said pilots? Because if you look at pilots now, they're considerably a lot older.
Well, not necessarily. You got to remember, I mean, pilots are coming out of Air Force Academy. Actually, they're coming out of everywhere. ROTC. I mean, I was an aviator and I just happened to be given the job. I was older. I was 24. I was one of the older guys that went in through it. But I mean, we had 22, 23-year-old pilots. Once you go through the pipeline, let's say you graduate at 21, you commission, you're in flight school for 2 years. So now you're 23 and you're in the right seat. And I mean, there were times where not a single person on the aircraft were over the age of 30, 27 or maybe even 25, 24, 23. Loadmasters in the back are 19, 20. And yeah, we were flying. We had a multi-million-dollar aircraft and we're told to do a mission and we did it.
Okay, all right. So, I guess what I'm saying is like, okay, so you have this 20-year-old fresh out of the academy, and you put him in the Phantom, and you say, fly that way and bomb this, and then so we know the attrition rate's high, and then you get another batch. Okay, now you guys go bomb that. Again with the attrition rate. I guess my overall question is it skill on the one end or just like an overwhelming odds on the one end, or is it new pilots and experience on this end flying into a virtual buzzsaw?
Yeah, well, you saw with Sijan, so I say that, but Sijan was flying with a lieutenant colonel who was probably in his mid-30s at the time, most likely had more experience. And so yeah, I'll basically backtrack on everything I said. When we deployed, they would take, a 35-year-old major and put him with a brand new first lieutenant pilot and a first lieutenant navigator.
Right
maybe
seat, left seat, right.
Yeah, maybe a seasoned flight engineer, someone who's been flying for 15 years, had been to Kosovo and Iraq, the first Iraq war. So yeah, they would definitely break up. But I mean, you would become a pilot in command in the AC, or what we call the aircraft commander, after a few deployments. You're still not that old, 25, 26. I enjoyed flying with people with aircraft, and you're right. It's experience. It's hours. That's why we log our flight hours. We get special things on our wings when you reach, I don't know, 3,000 hours, 2,000 hours. You get wreaths and stuff like that. So you can look at someone and be like, oh, this guy's flown for quite a while.
Okay.
And it's all experience. You have to experience the aircraft trying to kill you. Hopefully with someone in the left seat, a pilot in command that has also been on that end of being tried to kill, that'd be like, oh yeah. So when this happens, try this, or can put you in a situation. I mean, like when you go into like when you first enter the flight pipeline, you're flying Cessnas and they're teaching you how to stall and stuff like that. And you want a good, they put you in a stall, they put you in a spin so you can get yourself out of it. At one time, think about World War I. Those guys were like, what's happening to my aircraft? Oh, this must be what I would call a stall. And they had to figure out how to get out of it. And as you get that information, and yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why he was probably flying with that lieutenant colonel. Same thing in combat operations. After a while flying in Vietnam, what's going to kill you and what isn't. We knew what was going to kill us in Iraq and what wasn't. And we knew what tactics to fly. Cause you come in and they're like, these are the tactics we want you to fly. And one of them was like, corkscrew in and corkscrew out of the airfield. So that means the C-130 would do this, get to altitude, and then leave. And we're like, well, where are they getting shot at with these man pads? Mainly within 5 miles of the airfield. And we're like, so you want us to go engine hot, heat seeker missiles go after hot engines, and just loiter in the area as we gain altitude? I'm like, someone with an SA-7 could just look at that and be like, okay, he's going around. And in fact, planes got shot doing that. So we were like, no, what we're going to do is take off low and stay, you know, we'll take the risk with small arms fire, but I'd rather take that than a SA7
Right.
and then stay low, like real low, like ground effect, well, a little above ground effect, like popping up over telephone wires low and just blast through, you know, the fields of Baghdad. And then once you get out of that threat envelope, which no one's going to, I mean, if you have bad luck, you could run into someone trying to shoot at you in some remote area of the Anbar province. But once you get out, you know, 15, 20 miles, then you do your climb. You do a quick climb to get out of that initial small arms envelope. And then you can level off and then do the rest of your climb out, because there's probably not going to be an SA7 person waiting all the way. I mean, it would be so random for them to get you, but that's stuff we developed over time.
Right.
So yeah, I assume that Sijan, or all the pilots then, I mean, the first, and this was early, remember, this is 67. The Tet Offensive was just about to kick off, or did it kick off? I think it was 68. So like, we didn't crank up the war till really just as he was getting there. So yeah, they were still learning stuff as it was happening, for sure.
Okay, because I was thinking, I'm like, well, because we knew, well, the majority of the casualties was, one, we're on their turf, which is a tactical no-no, and then two, like I said, we're just pumping people out that have no business being there,
Yeah,
because of inexperience. You know, you have, I mean, yeah, you have your NCOs, your senior NCOs, and you know, and your officers, but you're basically just telling these kids, go that way.
Yeah. Welcome to old school war. I mean, if you ever want to be, and I don't know if you ever watched Masters of the Sky.
Not yet.
You got to, I don't understand. You want to talk about like we you know, the 1%. I don't understand how these guys did it, because they would take off, in some cases lose half their aircraft, right? Or half your crew gets shot up by a strafing run from a ME, or I forget what they're called, the Messerschmitt fighter aircraft. And they would come back and land, clean out all the blood, patch up the holes, and the next day they're getting briefed on their next mission. And it's like, and they would go out to the aircraft, and they would get mad when they would get a desk job, right? Maybe they would be in intel, maybe they would be operations or something like that. They would not like to be pulled out. And I suppose you don't know what that would be like unless you were there. And I 100% believe the camaraderie of it kept you going, right? Because you were going out to the plane with, I guess those crews had what, 12 people on them. So your crew, you've got the men with you, you sleep in the same barracks, you eat, you go on leave together. You're such a tight knit crew that I just have to assume that the only way they could possibly overcome the crippling fear of some of the missions went out with 100% losses. You know, 30 B-17s went out, 0 come back. Yeah. And it's like, how do you do that?
Well, we question, and we're looking at things with rose-colored glasses, because like our tactics now are a lot more advanced than they were.
Yeah, and our systems, our countermeasures,
right. But some things they try to, like the L-shaped ambush is still one of the best tactical things you can do on the battlefield.
That was probably used in the Revolutionary War, right?
because it works.
Yeah.
But then you look at like we look at things and we're like, why would they do that? Like I watched one of my favorite movies is Midway, and they gotta go deep into the dive bombers. Like these guys literally climb high
and then just screech down,
go straight down, and it's like, and you're
with the AAA coming right up,
and you're just going through all that thick soup, and you like drop your bombs as close as you can, and then now
egress.
You gotta man up and just like power out and try to climb so you don't.
Can you imagine?
Maddening.
Can you imagine the rush though of when you pull out of that and you survive?
But that's
can't match that.
But that's your tactic. Like, and it's like, and to them that was an innate skill and an advanced tactic to do.
Yeah.
Like, okay, flying high, you know, flags coming up. Okay, cool. Now let's do this and go straight down toward, and it's like,
yeah, I don't understand it. I mean, you can go back, really, you just keep going back generation to generation. The trenches in Gallipoli, where World War I, where they would blow the whistle and you're climbing out of the trenches and running straight into machine gun fire. And a lot of these guys would take their wedding rings off, you know, put their bayonets, they had a little hook, put their stuff on there, their necklaces, and because they knew they were dead. And they would sometimes get up and kick soccer balls just to motivate the men to keep moving forward into certain death. Like or go back to, I mean, the Roman, what do they call it? The phalanx or whatever that thing was, where they would take the shield and put it down and put another one on top, and they would move, and spears or whatever those things are called are coming through, and you're being rained down with arrows. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I suppose at some point people will look back on driving roads with IEDs or storming houses in Fallujah and be like, these dudes were insane. What were they think? They were shooting hot lead at them. You know what I mean? They had these devices that used an explosion to propel hot lead through their bodies. People are like, man, they were insane back then. But
these cavemen, oh my god.
Yeah. Now, I mean, they didn't have robot warriors.
They used wheels.
Yeah.
The what?
They didn't use transporters that would automatically beam them into position.
They didn't know how to use the 3 shells.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's war. And that's the one thing with this new direction the show has taken. It never fails, to amaze me about the human character, the characters that these guys are. Like it's unbelievable that they could face these odds and do it with honor and almost certain death in a lot of situations. And also seeing the way they've adjusted, like we said, over the years, the way that the tactics, because to bring it in full circle, we'll end on this. The tactics and the rules and the regulations are written in blood from those who came before you.
Yep.
And who knows? I mean, if we, God forbid, we ever get to another war, I think it would be more, who knows? I mean, what we're seeing over in Ukraine, we know that drones are going to be a huge part of it. We know technology will be a huge part of it, but they're going to face their own lessons, and they're going to have to, unfortunately, learn them in blood. And yeah, let's just hope if it ever.
We're going to be all right though. We got Tim Kennedy, so
we do. I'm sure he'll go because he needs an Instagram.
Yeah.
He needs an Instagram picture for the day. Next week, if you guys have ever heard, wait a minute, timeout, stop, hold the presses. I forgot to talk about our partners over at 22 Sierra Coffee. Look, I got a couple other bags out here for you guys.
I see you got Cocky's blend over there.
You got Cocky's blend, which it's like, smell yours.
Okay.
And then smell Cocky's blend. It's like a rich, like grassy floral. It's different. It's different. It's smooth. This is what we call our black and tan. So there's a lighter roast in there with a darker roast combined. You can use that for espresso. It makes a good espresso. But that's 22 Sierra Coffee. You want to support the show? If you want to support veterans, head over to 22sierracoffee.com. Use promo code 21GUN for 10% off. Help out some veterans and help yourself out with those rough mornings. I don't know if you guys get up at 6 a.m., but I do. And I cannot, even in the military, it's in my blood. I cannot get up early. I'll get up 6 a.m. Saturday hits, I can sleep till, I got kids, so it's kind of hard. But if I was left to my own devices, it would be 10 a.m. I would wake up without even the hint of a 6 a.m. like, oh, do I have to be at work? No, I'd sleep straight through it. And the weirder thing is I don't use an alarm clock during the week. So like I'll sit there and I'll be like dreaming, and then I go, it's 6. And I look over and 6:05 or whatever. It's always I don't know how I do it, but I hate it. And for the first 30 minutes that I'm awake, it is. I don't drink it out of the bag. I'm just this is the only prop I have.
Out of the bag.
I'm drinking coffee and just letting my brain kick in.
Just
and
straight mainline in the caffeine.
Yeah, just injecting it into my veins. But yeah, if you want to help out the show, head over to 22sierracoffee.com. Use promo code 21GUN. That's all I got. You got anything you want to?
Yep. Whilst we're here, thank you all for joining us. Thanks to the Gen X Talks people that came over. Christopher Sevick said, if he knew then what he knows now, he would have stayed in the Air Force as a career. Yeah. I trust me.
Look,
I would have done this.
People give us crap, but when I'm in my hard barracks, in my air conditioner over in the desert, and because look, they take crew rest very seriously. You can't fly a plane tired. You need some 22 Sierra in your stomach. No, you can't. You'll crash. You'll kill everybody on board. So you got to have uninterrupted. Don't mess with these people for the next 8 hours. Don't knock on their doors. Don't call them. Do not. That's literally what the rules are. Like, if you do that, it blows crew rest and you got to reset and start all over. Like, it's like, don't mess with these people until their mission gets activated at whatever time it is. And even then, maybe your plane's broken and it's like, oh, we're supposed to be called, but we're not. So you're still in crew rest. No one can mess with you. It's a choice, people. You can fly airplanes or you can defuse bombs. Some of us chose wisely.
Anyway, and Jade says, damn, says I may have to rewatch Memphis Belle. Great movie.
Oh, good movie.
It's been a minute, despite it being a little cheese ball. Yeah, it's kind of cheesy. I get it. It is a great movie. It is. I recommend, if you haven't seen it, I recommend Midway. Great movie. Memphis Belle, also a great movie.
Pearl Harbor.
Pearl Harbor, also good. Red Tails, very good movie. But I will always
Masters of the Sky.
Masters of the Sky, good. I would recommend
Bat 2-1.
Getting off of the Air Force thing for just a hot second.
Hurt Locker.
Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
Not Hurt Locker.
And Hurt Locker.
Do not watch Hurt Locker.
And check out Warfare if you can. It's a rough one, but it's very.
But and also we do have the Discord up. It is up and running. Jeremy, if you could put that up, he already got it up. Look, you beat me to it. Go ahead and join the Discord. The link is on the Chiron there, and it's also in the chat. But yeah, join us. Tell us what you got. Matter of fact, your assignment this week, if you join the Discord, is what is your favorite military movie and why, and what is your most hated military movie and why? Let us know.
Next week, Bass Reeves, legendary lawman, Civil War veteran. We're going to be talking about him. The week after that, we're going to be talking. Week after that, we're going to go back into our controversy. We're going to talk about Michael Murphy. No controversy with him. That guy was stud, Medal of Honor recipient, Navy SEAL. But he was unfortunately killed during Operation Red Wing, and there is a lot of controversy surrounding that. So that will be right before the Murph Challenge on Memorial Day. I am not doing it this year.
Don't look at me. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, I like to do it every year, but yeah, I got some tendonitis. I just can't. Whatever. It's neither here nor there. But yeah, thanks for checking us out, and we will see you next week.